Well, we are 9 o'clock. I think we'll go ahead and call this meeting to order. If you would stand with me, we'll say the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. If you remain standing, we'll have prayer. Robert Courtney from Union Valley Bible Church.
Let's pray together. Dear Heavenly Father, we thank you for this day that we can come together. We thank you for the nation that you have given to us, that we can make these decisions. We have the freedom to worship you in spirit and truth. We thank you for each of these men who have been elected to serve our county. I just pray that you give them wisdom and discernment in the decisions that they make, that in accordance with your word, that they would be united in mind, intent on one purpose, and that purpose would be for the good of our entire county. I do thank you, lastly, for salvation through Jesus Christ, the great promise that you gave your life for us, that if we have put our faith in you as our Savior, that you would save us from our sins. We thank you for that. And we thank you for just the freedom we have to know that in this country. Again, I just pray that we would be all united in spirit and mind as we discuss these important deals that regard our county here. I pray that our decisions that we make would be honoring and glorifying to you. And I pray these things in your name. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Pastor. Appreciate it. Well, welcome. Thank you, everyone, for being here. I appreciate it. Being here this morning. I think we'll move to item 3 and ask if there's anyone here for public comments this morning. Anybody here for public comment? Well, that was quick. Seeing none, we will just move on down to any additions or revisions to the agenda or changes that we need to note. They just did a great job, didn't need to. Item 6, consent agenda. Voucher bills, renewal of a malt beverage license. Do I have a motion to approve that?
I motion to approve the consent agenda as presented by staff.
John White's a motion, seconded by Commissioner Bogner. Any comments? Seeing none, roll call.
Commissioner Hurst?
Yes.
Commissioner Friesen?
Yes.
Commissioner Parks?
Yes.
Commissioner Weitzel?
Yes.
Commissioner Bogner?
Yes. All right. Consent agenda's passed 5-0. Item 7A, annual report by Solid Waste. Megan?
Good morning.
Good morning.
We've been quite busy at the landfill the last year, if you've not been out there. Some projects we've been working on. We have been working on, of course, the gun range for the Sheriff's Department. I did include some pictures at the end that shows just our scrapers and our motor graders running over the berms, building the berms up 20 feet high in the air out there. We've also, this year, we're going to plan on demoing the area where the old scale house was at. We are going to also take out that area because that's going to be our next cell design in the future. We're gonna have to start excavating to have dirt removed from there so we can have our next cell 9 in the next couple years for that area. Planning process out there, it takes a couple years in advance to start doing our own self-performing work. So we'll start that this year, the end of the year. And then we're also doing dirt excavation over at construction demolition of phase 3. So we're on phase 2 currently, where we're placing C&D material. So we're excavating the dirt for phase 3 on construction demolition to start placing more construction demolition waste in that area in the next year. Spring cleanups, the City of Hutch cleanup, of course, was just this last weekend, April 26th through the 28th, actually. They brought in over 45 to 50 dumpsters. The city did help out with announcing what can and can't go in dumpsters. Of course, that doesn't always play true when it comes out. So we did pull a lot of tires, a lot of unauthorized things that shouldn't have been in there, but we did get quite a bit of material in from the citywide cleanup, so that was good. There also is small area towns that have citywide cleanups here recently. We have our household hazardous waste trailer that goes out within the community. So the city of Bueller, city of Prairie, Sylvia, Arlington, Turon. There's different times during the year that that trailer goes out. So those residents can use that trailer to dispose of any household hazardous waste from paint, stains, chemicals, any of that type of material. So then that gets brought into us, and then we sort it out and put it in either our reuse building or it gets recycled. So for household hazardous waste, for last year, we brought in over 51,225 pounds, about 25 tons of household hazardous waste material was placed in our reuse building for residents of Reno County that was available to the public for free. That is open Monday through Saturday, 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. We disposed and recycled 5,903 gallons of used oil. We took in over 10 tons of batteries that was picked up in 2023. We also recycled 602 tons of metal throughout the year was brought in. We take it over and it gets recycled and the revenue comes back to the county. And then we also have our mattress recycling, which took a big jump. We recycled over 250 tons of mattresses this last year. Those mattresses go to the Hutchinson Correctional Facility program where inmates disassemble the springs, the wood, they make furniture, they make dog houses, they make all kinds of different wood projects out of the material from mattresses. Looking into our municipal solid waste tonnage and construction demolition for 2023, for Reno County alone, we took in over 104,340 tons of trash last year. 37,000 of that was from just our out of county. So majority comes from Reno County residents, so a little bit over 88%. Total tonnage was about 141,504 tons. The C&D material, total for C&D material was 19,506 tons that was brought in from in-county and out of county. We do take occasionally some mixed loads from Rice County, Kingman County, that they can't take that waste at their C&D sites, but we'll take it at ours and we'll separate it and put it in C&D. Compost, we had over 2,259 tons of compost. We have to run a report for the state every year. So that's been pretty steady for the last couple years. Brush, we did receive over 7,356 tons of brush this last year. So I don't know where there's I know there's more trees in Reno County, but it seems like there shouldn't be because we receive a lot of brush. C&D for construction demolition on revenue from commercial customers, we received in over 250,000 on just C&D revenue, which is also a good thing for the landfill to help with the costs of rising equipment costs, maintenance of machinery. We also took in 406 tons of tires this last year. Staffing, we actually are full staff for the first time in I think 3 years, so that's a good sign for us. We also have 2 very good temporary employees at the time. Right now, they've been with us for a little bit, about 6 months. All they do really is pick paper. As you know, the winds and the weather plays a toll out there, and we do the best that we can. And we do go from 1 to 5 temporary staff employees, but right now we have 2 solid temporary employees that do a very good job that help on that. We've given a few tours this last year. Boys and Girls Club, they came for an after-school tour, and they toured the household hazardous waste facility. We talked about recycling. The Earth Matters group that I did a presentation for a couple times are the ones that kind of introduced Boys and Girls Club and asked if they could come out and do that. So we did that for them. Then we also, of course, were part of the Career Quest just this past week, which was great with a bunch of sixth graders from around the county and the city of Hutch. Education is our biggest part when it comes to recycling and reusing, and I do believe that we're starting to see things happen with that. We've had discussions on lithium batteries. I know that Mr. Bogner brought it up a couple weeks ago about the battery situation, and they do cause the fires a lot of the times in our landfill. So we actually have, we've got our household hazardous waste facility. When you come in, you can actually drop off those power tool batteries from like the power tools. You could do anything that's lithium, cell phone batteries, laptop batteries, backup batteries for your computers. Power wheels that the little kids ride, we have to remove all those batteries because if you take them and put them in the landfill, they will explode and they'll cause a fire. So we took in almost over 2,000 of those batteries just last year that have to be sent off for recycling. So on the report there, if you want to show the pictures, Randy, they've got just a couple of the pictures of like the gun range. There's the gun range and the berms that we're building out there. And then also on, I know when I come to the commission for approval on things, equipment is expensive. So I kind of wanted to give an overview on our certified powertrain rebuilds that we do with Caterpillar. We are able to rebuild our dozers, our scrapers, and our trash compactors. Our scrapers are rebuilt at 12,000 hours and again at 22,000 hours. The trash compactors and the dozers are rebuilt at 15,000 and 27,000 hours. They typically basically get rebuilt from the frame up. They are inside out, come back with a brand new serial number, brand new warranty on the machines each time, and the life cycle of the machines going through the rebuild program increases the life of the machine years and years down the road, which is cost effective to the county. Since these machines are the nuts and bolts of the operation, I take a lot of value and pride in this program that we use with this because they do a very good job. They come back looking like a brand new machine. And I did a cost analysis kind of to go over, and I won't talk about it, but it just goes and shows what it does save the county in the end with having to go buy brand new every 3 to 4 years on equipment. Because a brand new scraper is over $1 million at this time, actually increasing. So, other than that, any questions?
Thanks, Megan. The couple of questions I had last time we talked about rates, I think it was last year. I know we were worried about rates kind of, and I don't remember the whole conversation, but it's kind of coming back to me. What did we do on rates as far as increasing?
We did no increases last year, and for 2025 budget, I still have no increases for this year.
I thought we changed some pricing on C&D or something.
For C&D, we took away, so we charged, in the original decision that was made on the resolution, residents and commercial were charged for C&D waste. The commission voted to take away residential, and we only charge commercial waste because the commercial waste is what comes in mostly in C&D from commercial businesses.
Okay. Yeah, that's what I remember. So I think there was some concern that we were going to lose some revenue or it was going to be a negative impact. Did we see that?
So the general public, the C&D that came in, how we code it when people bring construction demolition out themselves, was 5,524 tons. So if you take that and you average it at $10 a ton, you lost 55,000 roughly on. But commercial waste, that was the majority of the bulk that came in.
And what did we budget for C&D
for the revenue
last year?
We did not have a budget for last year because it was the first year we did revenues for construction demolition waste. It was at zero. So this year I did decrease it a little bit to take in consideration what we took away from residential for 2025.
So the 250 was all a net positive to the budget?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay.
And then as far as the other rates that you were talking about, we did not do any increases for last year, for this year for 2024, and for 2025 I have no increases for rates on residential.
Okay. Thanks.
You're welcome.
Commissioner Hurst?
Megan, did you receive a phone call from Brad Rail regarding gas?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Because he told me he had talked about it a few years ago, and so that opened up another opportunity,
Yeah.
maybe.
Yeah, I
So,
did.
Okay.
Yep, I talked with Randy a little bit about it a couple weeks ago.
Well, I probably have some of the same question as that. You want to elaborate on, is that in regards to the methane?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
okay.
Kansas Ethanol had interest in what with our methane.
Okay,
They didn't see or weren't ready last year when we sent out the RFP.
right.
So, and
Okay.
I told them that the decision has not been made on that. We're still in discussions, so the possibility is still there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool, thank you. Anyone else? Thank you, Megan.
You're welcome.
Appreciate it. I had a pun there, but I'm not even gonna say it, so anyway, I'll leave it alone. I always tease her, but I'll not do it, so. All right, we'll move on to item 7B in the business item, solar regulations. I think we're really looking for a little more direction today to get finished up in the zoned areas. There's been a lot of back and forth about zoned, unzoned, and I think we're looking for direction for Dawn today to nail down the zoned, are we not?
Yeah, Chairman
Patrick?
Parks, Don's here to answer questions too because
Yeah.
he's heavily involved. I will try and set us up a little bit here.
Okay,
In thinking about solar, there's really about 4 different categories or flavors, and the goal today is to just drill down for clear direction on just do them one at a time. So for the unzoned portion of the county, the plan is to go out to those areas later this year and do town halls and get opinions. So
Right.
today we're not worried about unzoned because we have a plan for when that's going to happen.
right,
For the private use in the zoned portion of the county, Planning Commission is kind of zeroing in on finishing their work. So soon you guys will have their draft of private, or sometimes we call it residential, but it's really private, non-industrial in the zoned. So we're not worried about that today because they're almost wrapped up with that. And then on the limited, the smaller size of commercial, you guys have already passed regs on that, so we're good. What staff and the Planning Commission is looking for guidance today is in the zoned portion. Does the commission want them to write regs that allow commercial, or do you want to direct them to update the zoning code to not allow commercial solar in the zoned portion? And if we kind of had an answer to that, we could start working on wrapping the zone, doing that right after. Then once Planning Commission's done with private, they'll focus on whatever you tell them to do there, and then we'll almost be done here.
but we have really 2 options, correct, though, Patrick, on private. We can either just leave it alone or let them work on, because it was really
So
had to do with setbacks more than anything.
Yeah, and they're meeting tomorrow and next Wednesday, they already have that on their agenda. They've got drafts. Private.
But if we would
is-
just leave it alone, they wouldn't have to do anything, correct?
You guys are gonna have something in front of you on private probably next month. So they're kind of, they're in their process and they're good. When they finish the process on private, we'd like to get them to go right into what you direct them on commercial, and that could be either updating the zoning code to not allow commercial at all, or if you tell them to, they can start writing regs to allow commercial, but they're looking for that guidance. Do they write regs that would make commercial possible, or do they just update the code that says commercial is not gonna happen in the zoned portion of the county? That's the guidance we'd like to have if we can.
One clarifying question. None of this has to do with unzoned areas, and it's,
The
Yeah.
plan is to deal with the unzoned at a later date after we go out and get opinions from people out there.
There'll still be a moratorium on,
Yes.
in the
yeah.
unzone.
Yeah, the unzoned, we're gonna deal with it, but we're gonna deal with these piecemeal, so today we would like to focus on the zoned portion and just the commercial, so we can kinda, if we do these in sequence, it's gonna possibly go better, and we can just knock them out one at a time.
and as far as, the zoned areas, the moratorium, is it still in place for private?
It's still in place for if it's rooftop, they're fine.
Okay.
Oh, that was you.
But they are close to having the regs done, and so we're almost within sight of finishing it, but just not quite.
And that would apply to both zoned and unzoned? No.
No.
He's saying no, you're saying yes.
This is just zone today.
No, just trying to get the zoned private done.
Okay.
Yeah,
Thanks.
I know, that's why we're trying to, because there's so many different variations, we thought maybe if we just attack them one at a time, we'll end up getting into the same place, so.
Are there any zoned areas of the county that are not in the Cheney watershed?
The Cheney watershed's kind of we've never mapped that out and come up with a consensus from the county perspective, so the answer's probably yes. I mean, would you agree, Don, the Cheney
Yes,
watershed? Yeah, I mean,
there's
that's-
areas in the zone part of the county that are not in the Nenaskal Cheney watershed.
Okay.
And to make something clear on the private solar within the zoned area of the county, the only reason that's on the agenda a week from tomorrow is because I put it on there. I didn't have clear direction from you guys yet, so I put it on there just in case you wanted regulations for private. And if you don't want regulations for private, then that will be taken off. But I put that on there.
Yeah, but Commissioner Bogner, you had something a little bit ago.
Randy's Daniel's second question. answered.
Covered it, okay. Did you have something, Commissioner? Well, I think what we're looking for then today is a motion to wrap this up probably, whether we don't want commercial, and then certainly whether we want to leave residential on the agenda for the Planning Commission or just leave it alone. I mean, the only really thing, Don, if I remember right, that was, and I think I brought this up earlier, I'm not trying to muddy the waters. Two motions can end this. And whether we want to take that off, I don't know that we even need to do anything, in my personal opinion, to the residential. They've been fine for years, but was mostly setbacks that was discussed. Is that correct?
Which is regulations.
Which is regulations, yeah. So, Commissioner Hurst.
Yes, we voted on this last time, and that was to allow limited scale solar, 10 acres max, 2 megawatts allowed, and that would allow not only private people to do this for their own use, as well as to assist in Ark Valley Electric for all of their patrons. And one of those regulations in there was the fact that there had to be a 2-mile radius before another small unit could be placed. And so from that standpoint, I don't understand why we would want to approve a large-scale commercial solar unit when we have a 2-mile radius on smaller units. To me, that doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me. And so from that standpoint, I would move that the commission send notice to the Planning Commission to prohibit commercial LSS, which is large solar systems, in the zone portion of Reno County.
Point of order, are we looking for a motion here, or are we looking for just to provide consensus?
I would be happy with the motion, honestly. I think, I appreciate Commissioner Hurst's comment that doing the small scale kind of implies that we don't want the large scale, but staff just feels like we want to be completely clear on what direction there is. Do you agree with that, Don?
Yeah, because if you get a motion and you want to prohibit it there, then we have a public hearing and we take care of that through planning and zoning. Until we have that motion, then we won't do that.
Do I hear a second to the motion from Commissioner Hurst? Commissioner Bogner seconds that. Further discussion?
Yeah, I got discussion. So as far as restricting rights of property owners, they're in a process, they're investigating it. It isn't like, as far as statutes go, zoning restrictions, don't they have to go through the process before they get here?
Yeah, I mean, what you're doing today is it's a motion to give direction, because there still will be a public hearing and they'll still write the regs that direction. the problem we had earlier was if they go through all the, we're just trying to be a little bit more efficient because they don't want to send you guys regs on something that are completely opposite of what you're looking for.
Well, on large-scale solar regulations, you told us to stop. There is none. So if you're going to prohibit it, we don't need any. If you're not going to prohibit it, we need to open that back up and create regulations.
If we give them the answer to the test, like, they're not doing anything. Like, that's not a process. Isn't there a process required to, like, investigate whether this is the right thing to do, not to just direct them to do it? Because if we're just doing that, why would we waste their time?
So if this commission votes or doesn't want large-scale commercial solar in the zoned area, that's what your direction is, then the Planning and Zoning Commission will have a public hearing to discuss all that and get that input, and then that will all come back to you. You will still make the final decision. You're not making the final decision today. You're just giving the direction of the Planning and Zoning so they can carry forward with this.
Well, I mean, my observation is that the commission has latched on to a few pieces of information that may or may not be factual related to environmental impact. And now we're saying no. And we don't have a process that's provided the evidence. Last time Mark was up here, he said he didn't have factual information to give to us. And now we're saying, let's prohibit it because we believe certain evidence that hasn't even been presented to us through the process.
I might rebut that just a little bit, Daniel. There was public hearings early on in this whole process and emails that were received that I believe proved out the people in the zoned areas did not want large-scale commercial solar. And that's part of the reason for moving into the unzoned, to hear from them, because we haven't heard from that side of the county, if you will, with that. And the majority of the people that showed up for the public hearings voiced their opinion that they did not want large scale. And so, I mean, I don't, factual or not, we work for the people. If that's not what they want in the zoned area, that's the direction we really have to move.
Well, if you want the voice of the people, you put it to a vote. I don't think, listening to a vocal group can give you any evidence of whether it's a majority or representative of what the people want. Like, I understand there's a vocal group that does not want this. And so that wasn't what I said. I mean, I said that I think the commission's latching onto environmental evidence that has not been sufficiently proven. And we're making a decision to send it back. And it's just out of order. Like, if our decision is to prohibit it for the reasons of environmental impact, then I would like the evidence to be presented and be at least agreed upon by this group that that's their job, to kind of adjudicate through the process. If we're just saying we don't want it because we think the majority of people don't want it, I mean, I think that's a fair argument. I don't know that that's accurate, but I think that's reasonable. But if you guys are hanging your hats on environmental evidence that some resident has provided that they've got off the internet, I don't think that's a fair way to make a decision.
Commissioner Bogner did have a comment. I'd like to hear from him.
Well, there has been comment on large-scale solar. And so we've had comment already. And as Daniel says, we know how a majority of the people feel in that area. Most of what we hear is coming from people with a financial interest in these projects. Third-party scrutiny or evidence, as Daniel points out, is starting to come out pretty strongly in farm publications. Major news network has recently come out with some independent third-party studies that would cause me to question very seriously some of the information we have out there right now. Since the first of the year, there have been, in various parts of the world and here in our neighboring state, several of these green projects that the courts have sided with the public, and they're being shut down and ordered dismantled. Not only shut down, dismantled. Roughly 10%, if I remember the numbers correctly, of the projects that have been approved recently are now, through the courts, being shut down. Now, are we exactly sure about everything? No, we can't be. We're taking the best guess as to what's going to be the outcome on these properties. I'm not prepared at this time to take a best guess. I'd rather vote to prohibit, because any vote can be overturned. And as we see more clearly what's happening in these industries, that can be done at any time, at a later date. If we allow them, and then we wish they weren't there, like in this 10% of cases that's gone through the courts, it's pretty hard and very expensive to undo that. I'm saying it's a new enough industry that maybe we ought to walk slowly here and prohibit it for the near future. And if things turn out differently, anything we can do, anything we do can be changed by a vote at a later date.
John, I know you have something, Commissioner White, so go ahead. Yeah, we do have a motion on the floor that we need to deal with here in a minute, but I do want to hear comments, so go ahead.
Yeah, so I'm with Daniel on this. I don't think us sending direction to ban it is the proper move. I think maybe a consensus to bring to them is a better option. Or like, hey, these are what the commissioners are saying. I think I definitely did hear enough evidence and talk to enough people that in the Cheney watershed area, I think we ought to move very, very carefully with there, because we're talking about a lot of people's life, and we don't want a Flint, Michigan situation here in Reno County or in Sedgwick County. But I'd like more information on the unzoned areas, and so I think, not in the areas that aren't in the watershed, whether or not that's a good fit. And so that would be my, my opinion. I've just not been convinced that banning it in the areas outside the watershed, is necessary or a good thing. But there may be more evidence out there that I haven't seen.
Sorry, were you done?
Yeah.
What is the primary issue concerned with contamination of groundwater?
In my opinion, no.
So what's the
Because
issue?
we do not have enough valid information over time to consider that it's definitely a problem. But that's definitely a problem. I've spent a lot of hours trying to figure out what would be correct on this, and read a lot of things and a lot of information from various subjects. There's a consideration here that that you all haven't brought up yet, and that's the consideration of our economic base, and that's agriculture. And to take out thousands of acres of production, which is, I forget exactly the number, but it's a pretty high percentage comparison. It looks low when you look at the total numbers, but when you look at I think it's 0.02 or something like that, but still, if you look back at what's being done in the production areas and you look back about what is done in ground and look, it's not just contamination of metals. There's a contamination with runoff. There's a contamination with destroying perfectly good topsoil because they want flat land. They don't want it necessarily over hills. They want flat land. And in order to make a lot of this land that they've, and I will say from my knowledge that there's been leasing already in the area you're concerned with. But if you look at what they do to that property and the chances of recouping that, they could say lots of things because they're getting lots of government money just to do this. And I just think if you really study the issue from the standpoint of property rights, both the owner of that property and the neighbor's property rights, which has gone into effect in a few states. We have had a public hearing. Notice was given of that public hearing. And there were people that attended that public hearing. We have information back from the public. So to say that people haven't had an opportunity, I feel that we can't provide information to everybody all the time. And I just believe that that's where we go, and I agree that Commissioner Friesen, that it shouldn't be done just on one issue that we don't know about. I also agree with Commissioner Bogner in the fact that this can be looked at a later time, but for the present time, that's what we're interested in. And I think that this is the best opportunity to let some time and research be developed. The people that we heard from were against it actually live out in the country. They don't live in town. And it took a lot of time and focus to study this. And you have to sort, just like the wind deal, between the chaff and the wheat. And so this gives us an opportunity to give more time to chaff and wheat, is my feeling. It's not just saying no immediately, it's saying no for right now. And as we get more information and more knowledge, we can make a lot better decision. Or at least those decisions will be based on some actual facts that we know. And you know, there's other drainage areas too. There's the Cow Creek drainage, there's the Little Ark drainage. And just because we look at the fact that Wichita gets the water from Cheney Lake, doesn't mean that our neighbors downstream in Cow or Little Ark or Big Ark won't be affected. So that's why I made that motion, and we listened to the people, and the people had to say, and they'll have a chance to say it again, right, Don? There'll be another public hearing on the banning, right?
On the banning.
Yeah.
Let me briefly explain why we're even here today on this subject. The Planning and Zoning Commission had worked several months on regulations and was probably within one meeting of having those regulations completed. They had a public hearing on that subject. So they listened to but right after that, this commission said to stop. You're wasting your time. So the Planning and Zoning Commission was ready to listen to what input that the public had to say, take all the knowledge that they had on the subject and finalize the regulations and bring them back to you for this decision. But we was told to stop. So now there's just a moratorium. We just want to know, we just want to know what do you want? That's it. We was almost there for you to make a decision and we was told to stop. The moratorium can't last forever.
Don, did you?
Yeah.
We could go on all morning. We're gonna have
Well, yeah.
to move with this motion.
Two quick things that haven't, as Commissioner Hurst has pointed out, haven't been studied. And a commissioner in a nearby county brought this up. There have never been any impact studies as to what it's going to do to the overall economy of Reno County. Yeah, there's statements from one side. And as far as I can tell, they're true statements. They're just half-truths. When you're talking about spending money on a project in a certain county, our mind is supposed to immediately go to this county is getting that money. At one point, I had a list of who was signed up. It's a matter of public record. Anybody can go get it. 50% of the landowners that had signed up were absentee landowners. Any payments to them will never come to this county, but yet it's a true statement to say we're spending this much money on this project. So we've got to discern whether the present use brings us more money as a county or what might be. The other thing, to back up the statement on what's happening in Cheney Lake, and I know from viewing your meetings in planning and zoning, there were comments made about there's other sediment going there. And the fallacy that's with that. When that lake was created, it was supposed to have a 100-year lifespan. I've lived 70 years. Well, no, take 10 off that. 60 years in its lifespan. 60 years. That lake, according to all the studies, should be 60% full of silt, 40% usable space to stop flooding, store water for use. At that point, you're at the tipping point to whether it's worthwhile. It can't do its job anymore. We are 60 years in, and that lake is less than 8% silted in. Its 100-year usefulness has been extended hundreds of years. How did it get that way? We've spent millions of dollars on the federal, state level. City of Wichita has spent millions. Theirs are mostly in programs that are cost share. So individual citizens have gone and spent that kind of money. And then we, as a commission, help pay for the people that keep that clean. We contribute. So do we throw those millions away on a possibility or a probability? Another thing economically, the county, in its overall budget, when it loses these taxes for 10 years, or that's been mandated by higher ups, is probably not going to raise anybody's home taxes a whole lot. But you get to a school district that's in a smaller area, or you get to a township, 6,000 acres is roughly 6 sections. All right, 4,000, I'm sorry. It's roughly 6 sections. A township is 36 sections. Some of them are 32. well over 1/6 of their tax dollars will be missing for 10 years. These people are worried about these things. The expenses will go on, and those entities are going to have to pass those taxes on to the remaining people, because you're not going to get them by the rules that are coming down. Like I said, we had a commissioner in a neighboring county that says, nobody studied this stuff in depth. And we're supposed to be making these permanent decisions without having this stuff available to us, or planning and zoning having it available to us. It's not time. Let time work its way through. And for the moment, ban it, see how it comes out. As the studies come on, I've been involved in 3 different things, different energy groups, different things, where things that were projected to happen, the exact opposite happened. And with that, I'm not ready to take that step right now. There isn't enough information there.
I appreciate it. I'm not going to go on all morning. So we have had a motion. And Daniel, I'll give you a quick brief word if that's
Well,
what you need.
I mean,
But
just
I'm
point of
gonna
order. I
entertain
mean, the
this.
chair can't close debate.
Okay.
I think I'm right on that.
Yeah. Motion needs to be called if there's.
Yeah. I'm almost done. So I appreciate it. I mean, this is our only other item. Are we in a hurry today? It's a big decision.
No.
Okay.
I'm not in a hurry.
Okay.
Just-
Question
I
for
think we're
Patrick.
going on and on about things that have been settled in the past. And so,
Okay, question for Patrick. I've asked this before. Can the commission essentially prohibit this matter, but say, hey, we're open to an individual case basis. If a developer wants to come to us and say, you know, here's our particular project, here's why it's going to handle the issues that you're concerned about, can we take it up on an individual case basis at a later time?
So, my answer to, and this is kind of something I was thinking while you all were talking, because Commissioner Friesen kind of raised an interesting point about process. But this is what's happening today. You're giving directions so staff and the Planning Commission kind of know what direction to go. You're not making a final decision because it will still come back to you guys as regs.
that's right.
If any time in the future, or whether today or a year from now or 6 months or whenever, you get three commissioners to direct planning and zoning to change the regs, to look into changing the regs, they can do it. And they would do it. And that's usually how Planning Commission matters start, is somebody on the commissioners say, hey, we want you to look into this. So my answer, Commissioner Friesen, would be if a developer or somebody came and asked you guys to reconsider it and a majority of the commissioners said, yeah, we'd like to reopen that, of course we can reopen it. What we're doing now, sorry, I'm going to take a step back and be a little bit legalese on you guys, but right now when we're making zoning regulations broadly, you guys are exercising legislative authority, which is very broad. It means you guys have a free range of reasoning and listening constituents. Once you have an actual reg in place and you have an actual permit by a specific entity, then you're required to exercise quasi-judicial authority, which means you have to look at the regs and you're supposed to be neutral. So now is the time to just broadly say this is the direction we want. Now is the time to be more, to look at it for more holistically and broadly. When you get that specific, because when you get that specific project, you're going to have to make zoning regs that for that project and any other project.
So, okay, 2 things. One, are you saying that a blanket restriction on property doesn't have to go through the quasi-judicial process?
With legislative authority, you guys can broadly eliminate uses.
So this isn't a zoning rule that requires that?
It's a zoning rule so that because you guys are making the broad structure of what you're allowing, you can have more freedom.
So it doesn't follow the zoning?
The old rule and all those things.
Yeah.
It's more, yeah, you have more freedom to make broad rules. You can broadly make the rules up for different reasons. Once you actually put rules in place, then you're required to interpret them and follow them. That's why when we have a specific permit and Planning Commission says, yeah, it follows our rules, and you guys are asked to approve it, you're really restricted on when you can say no to this specific project.
Yeah, I get that, but if there's just a blanket restriction, there's nothing, no question. You can't make an application.
Right. But you have more freedom you have more freedom to broadly restrict countywide big regulations, because you're not just spot zoning a specific project. You're not attacking a specific entity or a specific area. You're making rules of the game for it's the rules of the road for everybody.
Okay. Well, back to my first question. I don't think you answered it. If the county, I don't think it would be good for this commission to set it up to reopen the can of worms for the next commission. What I'd like to do, if we can do it, is slightly tweak the language that we're sending back and say something like, okay, doesn't appear as though the commission wants commercial solar in zoned areas of the county. However, it also appears as though there's a lot of unsettled evidence, and so we want to leave the door cracked by saying it's prohibited, but for if a particular applicant wants to make a application and address, and what I'd like the Planning Commission to do is set all of the concerns that have been raised that are lending to this broad prohibiting language, put that in there and say you got to address all this in your application, and the zoning commission and the county commission will look at these on an individual case basis when and if they ever come up, and just address it on an individual case basis.
I don't think you.
Because no, you can't answer a legal question. I'm
yeah.
asking.
I'm
Yeah,
a-
you were about to
Well,
answer a
commenting.
legal question. I'm
Yeah,
asking
I'll
Patrick.
refer.
Commenting. I think, Commissioner Friesen, in my world, in my way of thinking, if you did have if you did allow commercial solar, you'd probably have the restrictions that required any applicant to answer all the questions you're referring to. Other places, that's what they do. So what you're describing to me is very similar to zoning that would allow them,
Well,
just with the special permit, with the conditional use permit that answered a lot of questions about it.
This is the thing that's come up time and time again, and it's the point of every one of these projects is very unique, specialized, very expensive. There's a lot of engineering. It's not like there's going to be 20 applications here. We haven't seen one. So allow them to come, and you can reject all 20 if there's 20, but do them on an individual case basis. I think it would be less work, even though there's not all of the rules in place, than trying to answer all of the questions and creating rules that you just don't know. You take one application, you run it through, and maybe at the end of that process, everybody's like, we're tired of this, no more, it's officially done. But leave it open and allow, there's a point here where it's farmers never want to be told what to do with their property. Never. Except for when somebody else does something. And I'm concerned at our, restriction of property rights for things that we don't necessarily know. And I think we should at least allow a developer to come in and explain why we're wrong, and then let that, because right now we're not hearing from the other side. Well, there's no project, there's no developer, there's nobody here arguing the other side. It's just people that are worried about information that they've heard that may or may not be accurate. I think there's been many people here that say, we don't know if it's right or wrong. Planning Commission says they don't actually have any factual evidence that says this is right or wrong. So can we change the motion, or like, I don't want to make a motion where somebody's going to say that's not going to be legal, right? So the motion would be something like amending this prohibiting language to include, if the Planning Commission goes through the process and they conclude the same thing we have, to provide a list of reasons why at this point it's not in the county's best interest. Put those all on paper and say, the county is still, I'm almost done. The county is still open to individual developments if an application were to be received with addressing those issues. Can we say that?
Do you want to answer, Don? Yeah.
I'd like to say something. So what you're wanting, so somebody applied, then we can address the issues. So what the issues is addressing the regulations. So you need regulations. And then if somebody applies, then it goes through the process. It comes to you. Does it meet the muster of the regulations or not? And they can argue their point with the public hearing and all that.
I know what you're saying, Don. I don't think it's practical to answer all the questions and create all the regulations when we don't even know what the applications look like. We're not even sure what the risks are. And so you study it at the time. It's just leaving the door cracked is all I'm asking.
So then what you're saying then, so if somebody applies and then you want to entertain that, then we're going to have to go create regulations.
Well, I don't think so. I think it's so complex and so individually based that you deal with it on a case-by-case basis. You're trying to create this mold for every application, and we don't even know what the applications are, so we're just going to guess and guess and guess, and it's going to be wrong. And it's just like, let somebody bring something, run it through, and create restrictions like you always do on a conditional use permit. It's like,
and those restrictions would be through the planning and zoning, because all
Yeah.
land uses go through planning and zoning.
right, just do that on a case-by-case basis.
And then we would, okay.
But you could do that if you had policy. You have no policy currently to go on a case by case. Had we have a moratorium or a ban and you go case by case, once you set a precedence, if I'm wrong, Mr. Hoffman, once you set a precedence, you open the door for just allowing it. And there'd be really no reason for a ban, in my opinion. Secondly, I want to speak here. Secondly, Don is not in the business of looking up information whether he should or shouldn't ban that. They're in a planning commission. They're there strictly off of our advice to put together regulations. And so when they have conditional use permits that they have to weigh in the balance, it's because they have a policy in place. Right now you have nothing to work off of. So you've got to do that. We've been fighting this for months and months. And it appears to me when I look around the state, the majority of the counties that go through this and have went through this, every one of them have banned it. Whether we do or don't is not up to one individual, but obviously they know something. And it continues to be banned. There's a due process. We went through a due process. We had public hearings. We intend to have public hearings in the other areas in case they want something out there. My feeling is it'll probably go the same way. But so we circumvent what the people's rights are here for a due process that they don't want it. And we can say we can hear from only one faction of people, but you publicize that and they have every opportunity to come to those hearings. If they choose not to, that's their deal. One of the reasons I fought to do it in the other unzoned areas, if you'll remember calling back, is I'm not going to let a zoned area dictate what an unzoned area does. If they want to all be zoned, they'll fall underneath of that. But to have just a small group of people in the county dictate everything for the county, we can't do that. They're all constituents. They all have a voice, and they all have rights. So perhaps it would be developed out there. Perhaps it wouldn't. As far as the watershed goes, I've been sitting here and listening to all this bantering back and forth. I remember months ago when you brought a chart to us that we didn't look up here, that almost the majority of the watershed in the county goes that direction. So if we was to ban it, that's pert near all the county anyway. If we want to keep it out of the waterways, every tributary ends up there. And so, I mean, we can't keep bantering this stuff back and forth, in my opinion, because it's all been already done. And it muddies up the waters for planning and zoning. If we give them a ban today and they come back to us with a policy we don't like, we can critique that at that point. If we wanted specifics in there. Am I way out of bounds here, Patrick? And my synopsis of what I've heard.
I think no, I agree with what you said, and I think Don gave the answer I would have given to Commissioner Friesen's question. So,
Can I ask what the motion is?
You want to reiterate your motion, Mr. Hurst?
Do you have it? Would you like to read it back?
I have part of it.
Okay.
I have the commercial.
Can you turn your mic on?
Sorry. Commercial, the commission notice to prohibit commercial and zoned portion of Reno County. That's
Direct the
basically.
planning commission to,
Mhm.
commission directs the planning commission to,
Large scale.
pardon? I get this right.
Large scale.
Prohibit, yes.
Commercial and zoned.
Commercial, large solar systems.
What?
In the
I still
zone
don't
portion
understand what
of
they're gonna
Reno
do.
County,
What?
In the zone portions of Reno County,
And that was
Kansas.
seconded by Commissioner Bogner, correct?
I mean, you just have a direction to ban it. Like, what other option do they have?
well,
How's it going to come back here? Not ban it?
well, we just wanted to know whether or not they should spend time on regs for commercial. I mean, that's really the question.
Yeah.
Whether or not, as you were discussing earlier, is the door cracked open? Is it shut? It helps staff and the planning commission know, so that they know whether or not to to work on it or not work on it.
If we're not going to leave it cracked, I would not support sending it back there. Like, just ban it and be done with it. Like, that's just going to waste their time. Don't have a public meeting if we're saying it's done. It's a waste of the public's time. Like,
I
just
believe that's kind of.
just
We might-
end it.
because of the way we handled small scale, I'll look with staff. We might not need to do anything else. We could just leave it off the books. But eventually, I would like this moratorium. The moratorium needs to end someday, and I don't want to end it. I don't think the county should end it until all the different flavors of solar have been dealt with. So that's why it's important to get us to the end of the moratorium. We have to make sure all the categories are dealt with some way in the code.
So do they need to draft language, or can this commission just draft prohibiting language?
I don't know that. I think because small scale, as Commissioner Hurst said earlier, the small scale is allowed and it has the restrictions on it. I'm not sure we'll have to do anything. I need to talk to Mark and Don about that and make sure we think we're covered.
Land uses go through planning and zoning, whether you're banning it or providing regulations for it.
I just think are you going to do a public hearing?
We had a public hearing on the regulations, but we never had a public hearing on not allowing it. And so they get a public voice.
Okay.
Commissioner Bogner, you have something quick?
Yeah, my question would be, if he's one meeting away from getting regulations, would it be best to have the regulations in place should at a later date, either way this goes, the regulations would be there, and if we don't allow it, fine, they won't be used. I noticed some of the other counties did have regulations before they banned. Or in the future, should a future group say it's okay, then the regulations are already in place to start working from.
You also, besides regulations, you have a development agreement. And that development agreement carries a whole lot of weight. And you've got specific regulations, and then you go into how it's gonna affect the county. And that's your development agreement also has to do with decommissioning and so forth. So there's two items involved in this.
The Planning and Zoning Commission doesn't create the development agreement, you do with staff. And that's after a project's been asked for.
One of the things that was brought up, Commissioner Bogner, by you earlier, was to look at, if we did a ban, to go back later and look at it if it developed information that the majority of the board was comfortable with. And I think to send them through drafting regulations to ultimately ban it is a shame on our part if that's what we decide to do. And secondly, they've got better use, not better use of their time, don't misunderstand my comment there, but if they don't need to work on that, they have plenty of projects to work on when they come together for their meetings. I mean, so it is, they put a great deal of time into this to begin with, and it's certainly not their call to ban it, not ban it, but they're looking for direction whether to create that or not, and the motion was made, and whether we don't want to entertain that or we want to amend it, I can't say, but we need to.
I'd like to say just, so I hear this all the time, well, it's darn near the whole county. Well, darn near the whole county and the whole county are two separate things. And with that, I'd like the motion to call the question.
A motion to what? I'm sorry.
Call the question. It would take 4 of us, but it would end discussion and it would make us vote.
I guess explain that to me.
If his motion to call the question is successful, then you just vote on it and you stop talking. You do the roll call vote immediately. That doesn't need seconded, does it? Does it just?
Yeah, it needs seconded, and it needs to be a supermajority to end debate.
I'll second then.
Any comments?
Yeah, it's not debatable, but I mean, why call it like, why, like, this is the only thing left. Let us just talk through it today. Why call the question?
Just because I feel like we're saying the same things over and over again.
I agree.
Yep.
We were really close to something, like, I was gonna make a motion to amend.
It's not debatable,
Yeah.
Yep.
just
Yep.
like me.
Let's do a roll call on his, on
Okay.
Mr. Wentz's.
Mr. Hurst?
Yes.
Commissioner Friesen?
No.
Commissioner Parks?
Yes?
Commissioner Weitzel?
Yes.
Commissioner Bogner?
Yes. Motion passes 4-0.
Um,
Now we need to vote on the motion. Do a roll call on that?
Gotcha. Commissioner Hurst?
Yes.
Commissioner Friesen?
I'm going to vote no simply because I don't think we got through the conversation. I understand the rest of the commission disagrees.
Commissioner Parks?
Yes?
Commissioner Weitzel?
No.
Commissioner Bogner?
Yes. Motion passes 3-2.
Can I ask a question on what it is that we're doing now? Are we doing a hearing?
Yeah, now the planning commission's going to work on going through their process to wrap up the commercial. And
We're going to do a hearing on what?
they can't do anything without doing a hearing. So they'll draft it. They'll take this direction. They'll draft it into the zoning regs and go through their process and have a hearing. And then they'll all come back to you when they have a recommendation.
So we're going to have this whole conversation again.
Potentially, yeah. And sometimes commissioners. I've been in planning meetings where commissioners change their minds about things, or city council people change their minds. So that's why the people sometimes say, "Well, you already voted on it, so there's no process." But that's really not true. People get new information all the time and adjust themselves. So that's why we have all these meetings.
When this goes before the Planning and Zoning and they listen to the public with a public hearing, that doesn't mean that the Planning and Zoning Commission is going to agree with banning solar in the zoned area of the county. They will bring that back to you. They may disagree. They may say, no, we believe that it should be allowed. So just because you prefer it maybe to be banned doesn't mean that they have to agree with it, because they don't. But you make the final decision.
We need a second area here today, Mr. Charrington, correct? Do we need the direction for residential, or you're just going to develop that? That's,
They're working on that.
they're
I
working on
understand.
that
So,
currently.
so I have the answer now to commercial zoning, what we need to do. My second and only last question, do you want to regulate private solar in the zoned area of the county? Yes or no?
No.
Well,
I'd make a motion to not regulate private zoning in the private solar in the zoned areas of the county.
I'll second.
Commissioner Bogner?
So that means that there won't be any of these setbacks for ground mounts?
that is correct. There will be no regulations because if you choose not to regulate private in the zoned area of the county, next Thursday, we will not have a meeting or discussion about that. It's done.
Well, Don, I mean, what's the difference between a building and a solar array?
Solar arrays, just imagine it as a rooftop of a building on some stands.
I know, but don't you have setbacks for any construction?
Yes.
So, like, that would include solar
If-
arrays.
If you want to regulate private solar in the zoned area of the county, then we would probably go and create that as an accessory use in the zoning regulations, and then the zoning commission, a week from Thursday, will be discussing, do we want this, now it's gonna be regulated, is the setbacks gonna be the same as a building or not, or whatever that'd be created. So if you wanna regulate it, then that's the process it'd be. If
Well-
you choose not to regulate it, it's wide open, they can put them where they
Well,
want.
I'm asking the question, like, doesn't accessory use pretty much have a blanket definition of like any sort of construction, whether it's a piece of artwork or like not every possible construction type is listed in the definition of accessory use, is it? And we're-
Accessory uses or they have exact meaning of what they are, whether it's a building, whether it's, yes.
So if you come up with something that's not in the definition, the laws are currently written that you can do whatever you want.
Just like accessory use may be a flagpole, there's no regulations for that. That's not considered an accessory use, so that, put them where you want it. Propane tank, put it where you want it. If you want to regulate where private solar panels go, then make it an accessory use, and now there's setbacks or whatever. If you don't want to regulate it, they can put them on their property where they want to put them.
Well, I mean, that just seems like a flaw in the regulations. Like you should just, anything that you put should have a setback, like propane tank, whatever. Like you should just do it that way, and then you don't have to like single out solar. Are you sure that's not in there?
I'm sure. I mean, do you want to regulate what everything somebody puts on their property? The bird bath, flagpole, I mean, what are you saying?
Well, I feel like a solar array should fall in some definition.
And it can, make an accessory use, it can.
Yeah, it sounds like maybe we need to vote down our motion then.
I'm willing to withdraw if you are.
As am I, yeah.
So, my suggestion, whether we need to make a motion or not, is just tuck it in to like whatever a building is or something, and make sure, like just tuck it in. Don't create a whole nother subsection on private solar. It's just like, just have a setback like any other building. Because if you can build a giant building, you should be able to build a 20 kW solar array, which is the max you can build as a private landowner today if you want to connect it to the grid anyways.
Making an accessory use is the easiest, and you don't, and they may very well, oh, let's just match what building setbacks are, and it's done. So it's just one of the
That's
additional
what your
accessory
intent
uses.
is.
Well, I mean, I can't believe anybody would build it right up next to a fence line. You couldn't mow around anything, or they'd set it back some anyway. But I mean,
Let's let the Planning and Zoning Commission work on this and bring it to us.
Yeah, and keep in mind, just like a small scale, they bring you a recommendation, you have the right to adopt it with the majority vote or override it with the supermajority. So just see what happens.
So that's saying that you want to regulate private solar in the zoned area of the county, fine. Now we'll get that method and bring it back to you.
Lightly, light touch.
Well, that's up to them, but yeah, I understand.
One more question. Is it still prohibited in the non-zoned area
Moratorium's still in effect at
Okay.
the moment.
for private solar?
Everything.
For
Okay.
everything. That's next phase. After this is done, we'll work on,
I think
Unzoned
everything you said really
areas.
top.
Mr. Chairman,
yes.
to
Hang on.
talk about
I
this later
thought I
on.
still had the
Excuse me
floor.
just a second. I think
Yeah.
you might be interested in this. Commissioner Parks brought up the subject here a couple of meetings ago about establishing some informational meetings out in the county to find out whether the unzoned area is interested in, one, what their thoughts are on zoning, as well as solar. And for that effect, administration's in that process of setting up at least 3 meetings out in at least District 2, and I don't know where else they're working on. But in order to facilitate this information and to do that, I would like to make a motion to extend the moratorium on commercial and large-scale solar systems and only limited solar systems until October 1st, 2024, so that at that point in time, that we can have some information back from the public on what they feel about solar zoning and et cetera, so that we can go forward with things.
Can you reread that? Can you say that again, please?
Okay, yeah. I would make a motion that we extend the moratorium until October 1st of 2024 as it applies to commercial, large-scale solar systems and only limited scale solar.
Commissioner, is your motion for the whole county or just the unzoned portion?
That would be the unzoned portion because
When
we've
does it
dealt
run
with
out?
the zoning already.
I think currently it's end of June. Is that right, John?
Yeah.
First of July.
Yeah, 1st of July.
And so I think we need time because of this. The harvest is coming on. People are busy planning and everything. And I think it's time that we look at just extending this on now. But we need a definite date to be decided on.
Commissioner Hurst, so with your motion, you're really just, what that's doing is extending it, but removing the private house and business from the moratorium? Is that kind of what it does?
Yes. It doesn't affect any private.
When does it expire today?
July 1st.
Do I need a second or can he comment? You have
Well, I got a question. Did we let Don hanging on this, creating the regulation, or are you good with what we did?
No, I'm good with what you did so far. I
So,
wanna-
so we're okay to be moving on to the next,
Yes.
in your mind?
Well,
We're okay with large-scale commercial in the zoned area, and we're okay with limited-scale commercial in the zoned area. That's already taken care of, and private's been answered today in the zoned area. So we're okay in the zoned area.
Okay, so I'm sorry, I just,
if we're finished with the zoned area, I would have to include the whole zoned area if we're not.
The one thing that I wanted to, when you removed the moratorium, you extended the moratorium, but you more or less removed it for private, ground-mounted in the unzoned, and that's fine, but you did that.
Yes, but did not affect residential and business.
before we
Somebody second it
completely-
already, so we can talk about it. We're
Well, I'll-
debating something that hasn't been seconded.
I'll second it then.
Okay, you got a second by Booker. That's what I said. I need to get a second on that motion.
So, we really can't enforce anything we do in the zoned on the others. So we'll have to get this passed before we can allow the housetop and that type of stuff in the unzoned
The housetop's allowed everywhere
right now?
right now.
It won't, none of the stuff that we did for the zone affects anything in the end zone. There's still a moratorium on them unless we change.
Okay, okay.
To lift it for.
Thank you for the clarification.
So, question, why wouldn't we, if we've solved the rules for limited solar in the zoned areas, why wouldn't we just apply that to the unzoned areas? Then we don't have to.
Because they're unzoned, you can't apply zoning to unzoned.
And we can't do it.
Why not?
More or less, am I
Until
right?
We haven't passed anything. We've told him what we want. We haven't passed anything.
You applied the rules to the unzoned, then they'd be zoned.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, I know, I was just trying to say, yeah, you're right. I mean, you can apply zoning to the unzoned. And this is the conundrum that we run into because we have an unzoned portion.
Is that what the question is to them? Whether we're going to create special zoning for solar?
Well, that was my question originally, was if we had some hearings out there that we could hear from them, whether they'd like to be zoned or unzoned, and present to them why zoning might be a good thing for them if they want to apply these regulations to that area so they don't have to go through this or worry about having developments. And if they want developments, then we'll talk about that, or they don't want to be zoned. And then we leave them alone, and they're to their own devices.
So this motion is just to extend the moratorium for the unzoned?
Right.
Because the moratorium,
After today, we actually got a lot done today. Whether everyone likes it or doesn't like it, we got it done. I think we're close to being, I think we'll meet our moratorium deadline of July 1st. We're going to be close to having everything wrapped up within the zone by then. And then at the end of June, we'll be looking at whether or not we need to, you want to do a moratorium either today or later. We need to moratorium the unzoned and finish that part. But
Oh, we got a motion and a second.
I would ask Don, will we have the information back on the zoned areas by July 1st?
I'm not going to guarantee that. We have
Okay.
other things.
Then I would like to amend my motion to include both the zoned areas and unzoned areas until October 1st. The moratorium.
And I'll still second.
Bogner still seconds that.
I think that's just too long, but
I do too, but apparently.
But
Yeah,
if we
how
get
about
something
through the end
done
of
out there, we can lift that.
is it October this year?
Yes, 2024.
Okay, yeah. I
If
was
we get the
thinking-
hearings done, I think we can probably get that lifted
Well-
one way or the other.
Okay.
Let me re-speak to your question. The large-scale commercial is taken care of in the end. We don't, that's not going to take long to take care of that. The limited scale's done in the zoned area. And if you're going to regulate private in the zoned area, that's not going to take long because that's going to be an accessory use, like a building or whatever. So can we have that done by July 1st? The only question is the public hearing and all that on banning it. I'm still going to say no. So there you go.
publication time is what's going to hold us up. Yeah, you're right.
No, we will not have that done by July 1st.
Well, I think there's a technical error in this where you're re-banning limited solar in the zoning area. Now, you don't want to do that.
No, I don't.
Yeah.
So, limited,
Okay,
go ahead, Patrick.
I mean, I
Pick it
think,
up.
well, I think in the June in either the first or second June meeting, I could look at where we're at with Dawn and we could do a moratorium for what needs to be in place at that meeting. That was kind of always I was always just planning on rolling that moratorium every time we extend the moratorium, we are removing things that have been dealt with. And I think if we just keep kind of chopping wood, we're going to get there.
Well, I would, it's all right with the rest of the commission. Let's take this up at the first June meeting then, okay?
That'll give Don and I a chance to draft something.
All right.
Well, could we
I just
just
wonder-
remove private solar?
Second June meeting, I'm gone to first. Second June meeting, if you don't mind, I'm gone to first.
First June, you're going
I'm gone to first one. Can we move it to the second? Is that too late?
I-
I'd really like to be here for that.
I think, yeah, I don't think it'd be a problem to do it the second one.
I think if the problem with removing private though is that they still need to do the accessory work, or like to.
On unzoned. There's no accessory because there's no zoning.
Ah.
So you withdrew until then? You're withdrawing till then?
Yeah, I would withdraw my amendment as well as the motion, and with the fact that if it's all right with the seconder.
Yeah,
And then make sure that I think it's just consensus, we're gonna take this up on the second meeting in June.
Yeah, and staff will have something ready for you guys at that meeting.
So do we want, when they renew the moratorium, are we wanting them to take private solar out of the unzoned portion?
Yes.
It's not in it. It's not in it.
It is now. So,
Commissioner White, so I usually do like 2 drafts because I never know what's going to happen. So that's probably what I'll do on this one.
okay.
We're not creating private.
Yes.
Okay.
Sorry, you were down over the hill. I didn't see you there.
It's okay. You withdrew your amended
Amendment
motion and your
the-
motion, right?
And the motion, yeah.
Okay, just need
Yes.
Thank you, Sandy. Appreciate it.
Probably got the cart before the horse, but I wanted to be
That's all right.
sure we talked about that so that we had time enough to schedule our meetings, but also put a deadline so it's not put off forever.
Anything further on that? If not, let's move to number 8. Randy, County Administrator Report.
Okay, I have in the packet monthly reports for aging, public transit, the appraiser, automotive, county clerk, community corrections, communications, and emergency management. Wanted to see if there's any questions on any of those departments or any of their reports. If not, the only other thing I know it was in, I believe, Hutch Post yesterday, but we had a person on the health advisory board step down that was with the hospital, I think Aubrey Nuss, and so that position is needing to be refilled. So I talked with Chairman Parks about the process. So it has been reopened, and it's been open for a little while, so a little over a month. So we're leaving it open till the end of this month. We'll bring all the names back to the county commission for discussion and consideration. So just kind of letting you know that process.
Appreciate it. Thank you. Any commissioner reports? I'm going to start down at this end this time.
Well, I did have a question about on the website. I didn't see it, but I might have just missed it. Do we have a section on the website with legal notices and stuff now? We had created one. We switched our website, so I'll have to. It should be there. I'm pretty sure. It may be there. I mean, I didn't spend too much time looking for it, but yeah, let me.
It used to be there, but they did change the website, and that's been a process.
It's. But the new website looks good, I think. There is a legal notices and bids page, and there's a tab at the bottom of the home page to. Okay, at the bottom. Okay, link that. That's where I missed it. So, yeah, I mean, summer is coming. From what I hear, the city is going around with a vengeance, measuring the height of your grass. So if you're within the city of Hutchinson, make sure you keep it under 12 inches, or I've heard some people saying they're being charged $250. More people saying they're being charged $300. So, you know, if you see your neighbor's grass is a little high, you might want to help them out while you're mowing yours. You know, and if you're not in the city of Hutchinson, then it probably doesn't apply to you. But since my entire district is within the city, then you know, I figured I would put that public notice out to people so they can be warned. Hope everybody has a good summer, and Memorial Day's right around the corner. Be safe.
Hers.
Well, Commissioner Friesen, I hope I'm not stealing your thunder, but I want to congratulate those students at Bueller FFA who received national scholarship winners. And Hutch JUCO has another national champion. I don't know whether you saw that or not, but the HCC meat judging team won the national meat judging contest. And I want to congratulate all the members on that team and the coach. That's a pretty good honor. From someone who's been on other judging teams, that's a really good honor, great honor. SCID and Interfaith Housing are working with 3 rural towns who have desired housing assistance. And the reason I bring that up is because on May 14th, they are any person who, and there's information out with regards to those people who want to bid on doing some of the work on these houses. They're having, I believe it's May 14th, a bidders tour. So get a hold of Interfaith Housing and SCID if you're interested in bidding on any of the inner workings of renovation of homes. The one problem that arose this week with some people, or last week, and I agree with them, is having a problem with using comps for taxing appraisal in a district known for high-priced housing. That's 25 plus miles away. I know that there's state regulations, and Mike, I apologize for not talking to you about this first, but I hope that there's somebody listening out there who would look at the state regulations on appraisal to at least make some type of location differential with regard to housing values. In a real life situation, being a past realtor, I know that I would not use, if I was trying to list a house or trying to make a valuation on a house, I would not use a comp that's that far away and in the different complete location. So I hope that somebody out there is would address this with the state appraisals office. So.
Commissioner Friesen?
Yeah, thank you. 2 things, just one real quick update. Commissioner Bogner and I are on a subcommittee related to the methane gas efforts. Right now we haven't met officially yet, but I'm trying to gather more information. So we're on our 2nd cycle of questions, prepping for that meeting. So it's going a little slow. I know Commissioner Bogner wants it done before the end of May, so we'll see if we can have that meeting yet. But I did get another round of questions, and hopefully we'll have something to report back soon. Second, I had 2 different groups of 5th graders that I met here. I think you guys met some here too, and then I actually met some from Bueller grade on a little different topic at our offices in Bueller, and it was humorous to ask them what they think the qualifications for county commissioners are, and to what they think we should be paid. Many of them thought we should all have master's degrees, which may be appropriate, I don't know, for the decisions we're making. They also said we should be paid about $80,000 a year. So
let's get them back in.
Yeah.
The group I talked to just laughed when they point blank asked me what we made.
Right.
They just all laughed and just. I can guarantee you none of that group will want to be a commissioner.
Yeah. Well, it was just interesting how, young minds haven't been contaminated yet, or whatever you want to say. But, they had honest opinions. Like, I think they, recognize it's a hard job, and there's a lot of responsibility, and they, I think that came through in their answers. But appreciate the opportunity to work with the groups. I think I was with a couple groups from Nickerson, and then so that was a good event. They seemed like they had a good time. I'm sure going and seeing the SWAT vehicles was much more interesting than talking to us in here, but thanks again. That's all I had.
Commissioner Bogner.
To create some interest, we may, the lack of John being able to be here all the time, maybe we need to put a little money in the budget for some candy or something to make it worthwhile for him to come in the door. But 3 things. John, it's always good to help your neighbor. Glad you recognize that, but have his consent. Even though it's helping him and you feel you're helping him, have his consent. Another thing on the new website, people are finding things, but they're in different places, or they think they're missing right now. And I've had some people ask and later find it under, I guess it's just a matter of, hopefully everything's there that was there. It's just a matter of people knowing where to look for it now in the new site. And I realize it's just been out a week or two, but let's hope that smooths out a little bit. And like Daniel said, it's really kind of fun to see what the younger minds are thinking, just because they are our future.
You know, that being said, it never even occurred to me to ask for my neighbor's consent. I've always just mowed it, and and they've never had a problem with it. But,
well, then you're okay. You've got a precedent.
That's probably a good idea, though.
Well, about Thursday, you can be my neighbor if you like. I won't need consent. Thank you, guys. Appreciate it. Thank you, Don, for your patience, and tell Mark we say that too. I appreciate all the work you guys do on the projects we do. I know I'm glad you're doing it, not me. That's all I can say. And also to the IT department, I was thinking about this a while ago. Kudos to them. They've kept us out of trouble. I know they come in here, it seems like, frequently asking us for upgrades and money, but in the light of what happened in the last week over toward Wichita, we don't want that happening here. So I would rather stay ahead of the curve if we can and keep things protected. It's a lot less trouble to do that. I appreciate what they do. But also, I'm going to throw out a kudos to Hutch High Baseball. They finished strong. 2 different strong teams that they beat in a sweep from both meetings, and so that was kind of fun to watch him last night. And I do that because my oldest grandson plays on the varsity for Hutch High. So, but I hope they have a good postseason. But best year they've had since, I think, 04 or something like that. So they've done really well this year coming around. So with that, I don't have anything else. I think we'll just call for an adjournment then. Thank you for your time.